In downtown Chicago, the kind of encounter that destroys careers and changes lives was about to unfold. Two veteran patrol officers thought they had found an easy target, a well-dressed black man sitting quietly inside a luxury sedan, minding his own business. They saw a suspect. They saw a thug with too much money. They saw a chance to flex their badges and remind someone who they believed held the power. What they did not see was the federal warrant lying on the seat beside him. They did not see the badge hidden inside his jacket. They tried to put him in chains. Then the hunter became the hunted, and what began as a simple traffic stop spiraled into a corruption scandal that would shake an entire police department to its core. This is not just a story about racial profiling. It is a story about the devastating moment karma walks in wearing a suit and tie. The engine of the charcoal-gray Dodge Charger hummed softly, sending a low vibration through the soles of Special Agent Malcolm Hayes' shoes. Malcolm was not sitting in a parked car for no reason. He was a veteran investigator with the FBI's Public Corruption Unit, a division that did not chase bank robbers or kidnappers. They hunted the people who were supposed to be the good guys. His target was a mid-level city councilman suspected of funneling construction contracts to organized crime. Malcolm was undercover but not buried so deeply that he looked like someone else entirely. He wore a sharp, tailored navy suit, the kind that whispered authority, though he had removed his tie to blend in with the high-end lunch crowd of the West Loop. He took a sip of lukewarm coffee and scanned the street. It was a busy corridor lined with restaurants, outdoor seating, valet stands, and the endless flow of Chicago traffic. That was when he saw the cruiser. A standard Ford Explorer, marked with the city's blue and white stripes, rolled slowly down the block. Malcolm did not flinch. He had worked beside local police for years. He respected the badge, but he also knew that look. The cruiser slowed as it passed his Charger. The brake lights flashed. Malcolm watched through the side mirror as the cruiser stopped, reversed a short distance, and pulled in diagonally behind him, blocking him in.
"Here we go,"
Malcolm muttered, keeping his hands visible on the steering wheel. He knew the drill. He was not the target of his own investigation, but to a patrol officer looking for a hit, a black man in a muscle car sitting idle in a gentrified neighborhood apparently looked like probable cause. Two officers stepped out. The driver was a heavyset man with a shaved head and sunglasses hiding his eyes. His name was Officer Travis Brannigan. Malcolm recognized the type immediately. Long years on the force, still stuck in patrol, bitter, and looking for any excuse to ruin someone's day. His partner was younger, nervous, and already resting one hand near his holster. Officer Nolan Mercer. Brannigan approached the driver's side window, chewing gum with deliberate aggression. He did not tap the glass. He pounded on it with the meat of his fist. Malcolm rolled the window down slowly. "Officer, is there a problem?" Brannigan leaned in. The smell of stale tobacco filled the narrow space between them. He did not look at Malcolm. He looked past him, scanning the interior of the car. "Engine off. Keys on the dash. Now."
"Am I being detained?"
Malcolm asked, his voice calm and measured. He had played this game countless times, usually from the other side of an interrogation table. "I said engine off," Brannigan barked, his hand dropping toward the baton on his belt. "Do not make me ask again, or I will drag you out through that window." Malcolm complied. He turned off the ignition and placed the fob on the dashboard. "Officer, I'm waiting for a colleague. I haven't committed a traffic violation. Why are you blocking me in?" "We've had reports of drug activity in this area," Mercer said from the passenger side, his voice cracking slightly as he tried to sound tough. "Vehicle matching this description." Malcolm almost laughed. A gray Charger in Chicago? That could have described half the city. "I'm sure you have," Malcolm said dryly. "But I can assure you there are no drugs in this vehicle. If you want to run my plates, go ahead. They'll come back clean." Brannigan smirked, his lip curling into something ugly. "Oh, the lawyer type. I love the lawyer types. They scream the loudest when the cuffs go on." He finally removed his sunglasses, revealing hard, watery blue eyes. "Step out of the vehicle." "Officer," Malcolm said, keeping his hands at 10 and 2. "I'm not stepping out unless you can articulate reasonable suspicion that I have committed a crime. Terry versus Ohio. You need more than a hunch." It was exactly the wrong thing to say to a man like Travis Brannigan. To Brannigan, the law was not a sacred set of rules. It was an obstacle course. He knew how to cheat his way through it. He did not see a citizen asserting his rights. He saw a challenge to his dominance.
Open the door,
Brannigan growled, yanking the handle. It was locked. Open the damn door or I'll smash the glass. Malcolm assessed the situation rapidly. He was armed. His service weapon, a Glock 19M, rested on his right hip, concealed beneath his suit jacket. His badge and credentials were inside his left breast pocket. If he reached for either, these nervous officers might open fire. He could not risk a shootout on a crowded street. He had to de-escalate, even if that meant letting them believe they had won for the moment.
Okay,
Malcolm said. I'm coming out slowly. I'm going to reach for my seatbelt.
Hands where I can see them,
Mercer shouted, drawing his taser. Malcolm stepped out of the car and rose to his full height. He towered over Brannigan. The difference seemed to irritate the officer even more. Turn around. Hands on the hood. Spread them. Brannigan shoved Malcolm hard against the hot metal of the Charger. Easy, Malcolm said, feeling the heat of the engine through his suit trousers. You're making a mistake, officer. A big one. The only mistake was parking on my beat, pal, Brannigan muttered. He kicked Malcolm's ankles apart harder than necessary and began a rough, invasive pat-down. Then his hand struck the hard shape on Malcolm's right hip. The atmosphere on the street shifted instantly from tense to lethal.
Gun,
Brannigan screamed.
He's got a gun. Don't move, I'll drop you. I swear to God, I'll drop you.
Mercer aimed the taser directly at Malcolm's neck. Malcolm did not flinch. He froze completely, staring straight ahead at the brick wall of the restaurant in front of him. I have a permit, Malcolm said, his voice dropping into the firm command tone he used during raids. I am a federal officer. My credentials are in my left breast pocket. Do not shoot. Shut up. Brannigan yanked Malcolm's arms behind his back, wrenching his shoulder painfully. He slapped the handcuffs on tight. The metal dug into Malcolm's wrists, cutting off circulation almost immediately.
You're done,
Brannigan snarled.
You are done.
He reached around and ripped the Glock from Malcolm's holster, holding it up like a trophy. Illegal concealment. Assault on an officer. Resisting. We're going to bury you under the jail. Check my pocket, Malcolm said through gritted teeth, fighting the pain in his shoulder.
Check the pocket. I'm not checking anything until you're in the cage,
Brannigan spat. He grabbed Malcolm by the back of the neck and the waistband of his expensive trousers, frog-marching him toward the cruiser. Passers-by began to stop. Phones came out. A crowd formed. Malcolm saw a young woman filming vertically with her iPhone. Good, he thought. Record everything.
You're making a scene,
Malcolm said as Brannigan shoved his head down and forced him into the cramped back seat of the Ford Explorer. And you're violating federal law. Federal law? Brannigan laughed, slamming the door. The sound cracked through the street like a gunshot. In this zip code, I am the law. Inside the cruiser, the air conditioning blasted cold. But Malcolm felt a cold sweat forming anyway. Not from fear. From the slow, volcanic rage simmering beneath his discipline. Through the wire mesh, he watched Brannigan and Mercer high-five outside. They were laughing, celebrating the bust. Brannigan leaned against the hood of Malcolm's Charger, pulled out a cigarette and lit it, resting his weight right on the paint. Malcolm closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Let them dig their own graves. He shifted his weight, trying to ease the pressure on his wrists. Then he looked toward the cruiser's dashboard. The computer terminal was active. He could see the dispatch log. They had not even called it in. They were off the books. The back door opened. It was not Brannigan. It was Mercer. He looked nervous. In his hand was Malcolm's wallet, the one they had finally pulled from his pocket.
Travis!
Mercer called out, his voice trembling. Travis, you need to see this.
What?
Brannigan shouted from the street, still puffing on his cigarette. Is it a fake ID? I bet it's fake. No, Travis, Mercer whispered, staring at the gold shield inside the leather wallet. The light caught the eagle and the bold blue letters. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Special Agent. It's real. Brannigan stomped over and snatched the wallet from Mercer's hand. He looked at the badge, then the photo ID, then through the cruiser window at Malcolm. Malcolm opened his eyes and locked gazes with him through the glass. He did not blink. He simply mouthed 2 words. Too late. Officer Travis Brannigan stood on the sidewalk as the Chicago wind whipped around his thick neck. He stared at the badge in his hand as if the gold shield were burning his palm. For a rookie, this would have been a moment of panic. For a veteran bully like Brannigan, it was a calculation. "Travis," Mercer hissed, stepping closer, his face drained of color. "That's a Fed. That is a real Fed. We need to cut him loose right now. We say it was a misunderstanding. We apologize and drive away." Brannigan narrowed his eyes behind the sunglasses he had shoved back onto his face. He looked at the gathering crowd. He looked at the young woman still recording. He looked at Malcolm Hayes sitting in the back of the squad car, staring at him with terrifying, predatory calm. "We can't cut him loose," Brannigan muttered. "You think a guy like that just walks away? He'll file a complaint. He'll pull the logs. He'll have internal affairs crawling all over us. My pension is close. So what do we do?" Mercer asked, his voice cracking. Brannigan turned his back to the crowd in the cruiser. He reached into a pouch in his tactical vest, one that was not standard issue, and pulled out a small clear plastic bag. Inside were white rocks, crack cocaine, his insurance policy, a drop bag for situations where a suspect did not have enough dirt on him to justify a beating. Mercer saw it and gasped. "Travis, no. You can't do that to an FBI agent. That's suicide." "He's not an agent right now," Brannigan growled, his jaw set like concrete. "Right now, he's just a guy in a high-drug traffic area with a concealed weapon and a bag of rock in his pocket. The badge? He stole it. It's fake. That's the story. We stick to the story, Nolan, or I drag you down with me." Brannigan marched back to the cruiser. He did not go to the driver's seat. He went to the rear door where Malcolm sat caged. He opened it, and the sounds of the street flooded in. "Last chance to be smart, boy," Brannigan whispered, leaning in so his body blocked the view from the phone camera across the street. "You tell me you stole that badge, and maybe I go easy on the charges." Malcolm looked at the bag in Brannigan's hand. He did not look surprised. He looked disappointed. "Officer Brannigan," Malcolm said, his voice smooth and cold, "that is a felony you are holding. Possession with intent to distribute. Official misconduct. Conspiracy. If you drop that in this car or in my pocket, you're not just losing your job. You're going to federal prison, and I will personally make sure you land in a maximum security facility, where half the inmates are men you helped put there." Brannigan hesitated. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. The threat was too specific, too professional. "You think you're scary?" Brannigan sneered, desperate to regain control. "It's my word against yours, and I've got a badge too." "You have a body cam," Malcolm said. "Is it on?" Brannigan smiled, cruel and jagged. He tapped the camera on his chest. The light was off. "Malfunction. Shame. Predictable," Malcolm said. "But you forgot one thing, Travis." "Yeah? What's that?" "I'm not here for a traffic stop. I'm on an active operation, which means I have overwatch." Brannigan froze. "What?" "I'm the bait, Travis," Malcolm said. It was partly a lie. He had not been bait for the cops, but Brannigan did not know that. "You just walked into a trap meant for a cartel boss. My team is listening to every word you say. They've been recording since you pounded on my window." Brannigan looked around wildly. Rooftops, parked cars, pedestrians, restaurant windows. Paranoia hit him like a freight train. Was the van across the street surveillance? Was the man eating a hot dog a Fed? "You're lying," Brannigan whispered, but his hand was shaking. He shoved the drugs back into his vest. He could not risk planting them if there were eyes on him. Then he slammed the car door shut, locking Malcolm inside again. He ran to the driver's seat and grabbed the radio. He needed backup. He needed a supervisor who could fix this. He needed Sergeant Dorian Rusk. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha," Brannigan shouted into the mic. "I have a major officer assistance situation in progress. Suspect in custody, highly uncooperative, impersonating a federal officer, requesting a supervisor at my location immediately." Malcolm leaned his head back against the seat. He closed his eyes and focused on the rhythmic hum of the police radio. He was not worried about jail. He was worried about the councilman getting away while he was stuck playing games with corrupt patrol officers. Then another thought came to him, darker, more satisfying. Maybe he could catch 2 rats with 1 trap. Sirens cut through the city air. A heavy-duty police SUV tore around the corner, jumped the curb, and screeched to a stop near Malcolm's Charger. Sergeant Dorian Rusk stepped out. He was built like a mountain, old-school Chicago PD, with a thick gray mustache and a belly straining against his white shirt. He walked with a limp, a reminder of an old shooting. Rusk was known as a fixer. If a cop beat someone too badly, Rusk made the footage disappear. If money went missing from an evidence locker, Rusk adjusted the paperwork. Brannigan ran to him like a frightened child running to a parent. "Sarge, you've got to help me," Brannigan sputtered, keeping his voice low. "I pulled this guy over. Flashy car, attitude. I toss him, find a piece, cuff him. Then Nolan finds a badge. Says he's FBI. Rusk chewed on an unlit cigar, scanning the scene. He looked at the Charger. He looked at the young woman still filming across the street. "Did you plant the rock?" Rusk asked quietly. "No," Brannigan said. "He said he has a team watching. Said he's on an operation. I got spooked." Rusk slapped Brannigan across the back of the head. "Idiot. If he were on an operation, he would have deconflicted with the precinct. We would know. So he's lying?" "Of course he's lying," Rusk snapped. "He's probably some desk jockey analyst who thinks his badge makes him untouchable. You stopped him. You cuffed him. If we let him go now, we look weak. If he sues, the city settles." Rusk jabbed a finger toward the cruiser. "We stick to procedure. Failure to comply. Resisting. Illegal concealment. Badge confiscated as evidence. We take him to the station. We book him. We let him sit in a holding cell until he cools off. By the time he gets a phone call, the paperwork will be so tight Houdini couldn't escape it." Rusk walked to the cruiser and leaned toward the open window. "Hello, son," he said, projecting fake grandfatherly authority. "I hear you're causing my officers some trouble." Malcolm opened his eyes. He recognized Rusk immediately. His unit had a file on the man thick enough to stop a bullet. Racketeering. Extortion. Excessive force. Rusk was an old dinosaur of corruption the FBI had been trying to take down for years. "Sergeant Dorian Rusk," Malcolm said, reciting the name from memory. "Badge number 4922, multiple sustained complaints for excessive force, and a very interesting offshore account under the name Blue Shield Consulting." Rusk stopped chewing his cigar. The color drained from his face. The grandfather act vanished, replaced by the cold stare of a predator, realizing he had wandered into a lion's den. "Who are you?" Rusk whispered. "I'm the man who's going to end your career, Dorian," Malcolm said calmly. "You have exactly 1 chance to take these cuffs off, apologize, and give me the name of the councilman you're protecting. Because I know why Brannigan is patrolling this block. You're guarding the drop, aren't you?" It was a gamble. Malcolm did not know for certain that Brannigan had been assigned as security for the councilman's mob payment, but it was an educated guess. Corrupt cops tended to gather where dirty money flowed. Rusk flinched. Malcolm had hit the bullseye.
Get him out of here!
Rusk yelled at Brannigan, panic rising in his voice.
Drive! Get him to the station now!
"Sarge?" Brannigan asked, confused by the sudden shift.
I said drive!
Rusk roared, reaching for his own radio. Brannigan jumped into the driver's seat. Mercer scrambled into the passenger side. The engine roared to life. They were going to take Malcolm to the darkest holding cell they could find and figure out how to silence him. As the cruiser lurched forward, Malcolm felt his phone vibrate. It was the one they had not found because it was hidden near his ankle. He shifted his leg and pressed the button on his watch with his nose. The call routed to the Bluetooth hearing aid in his left ear, another piece of tech Brannigan had completely missed. "Hayes," a voice said. It was Assistant Director Everett Cross. "We have eyes on the councilman. He's moving the money. We need you to intercept." "Are you in position?" Malcolm smiled grimly in the back of the speeding police car. "Director, I've been detained by local PD. 3 hostiles. I am currently being kidnapped by Sergeant Rusk and Officer Brannigan." There was silence on the other end. Cold, terrifying silence. "Repeat," Cross said. "I am being kidnapped by uniformed officers to prevent me from intercepting the target. They are armed and dangerous. Trackers are active." Cross's voice became the hammer of God. "Hang tight, Malcolm. The cavalry is coming, and we're bringing the wrath of hell with us. Brannigan took a sharp turn toward the precinct.
You are making a mistake,
Malcolm shouted from the back, dropping the calm act so the recording would capture the urgency. This is kidnapping. Turn the car around.
Shut up,
Brannigan yelled.
You belong to Chicago PD now.
Then the radio in the front of the cruiser exploded with noise. It was not police dispatch. It was a cross-channel federal broadcast overriding their frequency. This is Federal Agent Lyle to the unit transporting Agent Hayes. Pull over immediately. This is your only warning. Brannigan stared at the radio in confusion. What the hell? Who is that? He looked in the rearview mirror. 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans turned the corner behind them, red and blue grille lights flashing with blinding intensity. No sirens, just speed, precision, and absolute purpose.
Step on it.
Rusk's voice crackled over the radio from his SUV behind the Suburbans. Do not let them stop you, Brannigan. Get him to the station. Brannigan slammed the gas. The cruiser surged forward.
They're chasing us,
Mercer screamed, gripping the dashboard.
The feds are chasing us. We're almost there,
Brannigan yelled. Malcolm watched the speedometer climb. The Ford Explorer was a heavy, lumbering vehicle designed for patrol work, not high-speed evasion. But panic was powerful fuel. Brannigan had the pedal mashed to the floor, the engine screaming.
Travis, slow down! You're going to kill us!
Mercer shrieked, clutching the passenger handle with white knuckles. His face was pure terror. He was fresh out of the academy, and he was now an accomplice to the felony kidnapping of a federal agent.
Shut up!
Brannigan roared, his eyes flicking between the road and the rearview mirror. Behind them, the sight was terrifying. The 3 black Suburbans were gaining. They were not stock vehicles. They were up-armored pursuit trucks used by FBI tactical teams. They moved in a V formation, like a pack of sharks closing on wounded prey. Inside the cage, Malcolm was thrown against the door as Brannigan swerved violently to avoid a delivery truck. Pain shot through his handcuffed shoulders, but his mind stayed cold and precise.
He's not answering, Travis,
Malcolm shouted over the roar of the engine and sirens.
Who?
Brannigan yelled back, sweat stinging his eyes.
Rusk,
Malcolm said, his voice like a hammer. Look in your mirrors. Where is Rusk? Where is the sergeant who ordered you to run? Brannigan looked. He saw the black SUVs. He saw city traffic blurring past. But Sergeant Rusk's gray police SUV was gone. He had peeled away blocks earlier. He left you, Malcolm said, leaning forward as much as the cage allowed. He used you to distract the feds so he could get away. You're the decoy, Travis. You're the sacrificial lamb.
Liar!
Brannigan screamed, but his foot wavered on the gas. Doubt had entered him like a worm. Rusk had disappeared. Rusk had ordered him to drive while slipping away. Then the lead Suburban made contact. It was not a reckless smash. It was surgical, a precise tap to the rear bumper, a PIT maneuver. The cruiser's back end fishtailed wildly. Brannigan fought the wheel and overcorrected. The heavy SUV drifted sideways, tires screaming in a cloud of acrid smoke.
Watch out!
Mercer screamed. The cruiser spun, sliding backward across traffic before slamming rear first into a concrete light pole. The impact was deafening. Glass shattered. Airbags exploded in a burst of white powder and chemical smell. Malcolm was thrown forward, his head cracking against the wire mesh partition. Stars burst across his vision. For a breathless moment, there was only ringing in his ears and the hiss of the radiator. Then the world outside erupted. The doors of the black Suburbans flew open. Agents poured out wearing FBI windbreakers and body armor. They were not holding handguns. They were holding M4 carbines.
Federal agents, show us your hands. Show us your hands now.
The command echoed off the buildings. Red laser dots danced across the shattered windshield of the cruiser, painting Brannigan and Mercer's chests. Inside the wreck, Mercer was hyperventilating, blood trickling from his nose. We're dead, Travis. Don't shoot. I surrender. Mercer fumbled for the door handle, kicked it open, and practically fell onto the asphalt with both hands raised.
Officer down! Hands up! Do not move!
3 agents were on him instantly, dragging him away from the vehicle and forcing him face down onto the pavement. The handcuffs clicked. The irony was almost perfect, but Brannigan did not move. He sat dazed in the driver's seat, the airbag deflating in his lap. His hand hovered near his service weapon. His career was over. His pension was gone. He was staring at decades in federal prison. In his concussed mind, he saw only one way out. "Do not do it, Travis," Malcolm said quietly from the back seat. Malcolm had managed to sit upright, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Brannigan looked into the rearview mirror. His eyes were wild. "I can't go to jail," he whispered. "I put people in jail. I can't go there." "If you touch that gun, they'll turn this car into Swiss cheese," Malcolm said. "And I'm sitting right behind you. You want to kill an FBI agent on your way out? That's not just prison. That is the death penalty." Brannigan's hand trembled over the grip of his Glock. Outside, the shouting intensified. "Driver, exit the vehicle. Final warning." "Rusk set you up," Malcolm continued, pressing the advantage. "He knew who I was. He knew what I was investigating. He needed a patsy to take the fall while he collected his payout. You give me Rusk, and I tell the prosecutor you cooperated. You may still see daylight again." Brannigan looked at the gun, then at the flashing lights of the FBI trucks, then at Malcolm's eyes in the mirror. There was no fear in them, only judgment. Travis Brannigan slowly raised his empty hands. "I'm coming out," he screamed, his voice breaking. He kicked open the door and stepped out. 2 agents tackled him immediately. They slammed him against the hood of his own wrecked cruiser. "You have the right to remain silent," one agent barked, ripping Brannigan's arms back. Malcolm watched from the back seat as the cuffs snapped around Brannigan's wrists. The click was one of the most satisfying sounds he had ever heard. The rear door of the cruiser was torn open. Assistant Director Everett Cross stood there, silver-haired and granite-faced, looking terrified for his agent and furious at the world. "Malcolm?" Cross asked, reaching in. "Are you okay?" Malcolm groaned and swung his legs out of the car. Cross unlocked the cuffs Brannigan had placed on him. Malcolm rubbed his wrists. The skin was raw and red. "I'm fine, sir," he said, standing and brushing glass from his suit. He looked at Brannigan and Mercer as they were shoved into FBI vehicles. The hunters were prisoners now. "We got them," Cross said. "Kidnapping, assault on a federal officer, obstruction of justice. They're buried." Malcolm shook his head, wiping blood from his forehead. "Not all of them. The big fish is still swimming." "Rusk?" Cross asked. "We have an alert out. We'll pick him up." "No," Malcolm said, his eyes narrowing. "Rusk didn't run to hide. He ran to finish the job. He's going to the meet. He's going to the councilman." Malcolm walked to the trunk of the lead FBI Suburban. "Open it. I need a vest and a rifle." "Malcolm, you're injured," Cross warned. "You need a medic." "I need to catch a dirty cop and a corrupt politician," Malcolm said, grabbing a tactical vest and pulling it over his ruined suit. He racked the charging handle of an M4 carbine. "Rusk thinks he got away. He thinks the chaos bought him time." Malcolm looked at Cross, a cold smile touching his mouth. "Let's show him that karma drives a Chevy Suburban." The location was an abandoned shipping yard in the industrial district south of the crash site. It was a graveyard of rusted metal containers and weeds, the perfect place for a transaction that existed on no official ledger. Sergeant Dorian Rusk parked his gray SUV behind a stack of containers. He was sweating heavily. His hands shook as he lit a fresh cigar. He had heard the radio chatter. Brannigan and Mercer were in custody. The FBI had swarmed them. "It's over," Rusk thought. "The department is done. I need the money and a way out." He checked his pistol, stepped out of the car, and limped toward the meeting point. A black Mercedes G-Wagon was parked in the shadow of a crane. Standing beside it was Councilman Sterling Crane. Crane looked like he had been carved out of money. Perfect hair, Italian suit, and a smile that vanished the moment he saw Rusk. "You're late, Sergeant," Crane snapped. "And you look like you've seen a ghost. Where is the security detail? Where is the patrol car?" "Plans changed," Rusk wheezed, limping closer. "We need to make this quick. The heat is on." "The heat?" Crane laughed dryly. "I pay you to keep the heat off, Rusk. That's why you get your cut." "My cut isn't enough," Rusk said, his hand resting on his gun. "I need the whole bag, Sterling. I need an exit strategy." Crane's eyes narrowed. 2 bodyguards stepped forward, large men in dark suits. "Are you threatening me, Sergeant?" "The feds are here," Rusk blurted. "They got Brannigan. They know about the drop. We have almost no time before they sweep this place." Crane went pale. He grabbed a heavy duffel bag from the back of the G-Wagon. "Then I'm leaving. You can deal with them."
"I need the money, Sterling,"
Rusk shouted, pulling his gun. "Give me the bag." The bodyguards drew their weapons instantly. It became a standoff. A corrupt cop against a corrupt politician and his hired muscle.
"You're a fool, Rusk,"
Crane sneered. "You think you can shoot me? I own this city."
"Not anymore,"
a voice boomed from the top of the shipping containers. Everyone froze. They looked up. Standing above them, silhouetted against the gray Chicago sky, was Special Agent Malcolm Hayes. He wore an FBI tactical vest over his torn suit, an assault rifle shouldered and aimed directly at Rusk.
"Drop the weapons,"
Malcolm commanded. "Federal agents, you are surrounded." From the shadows between the containers, tactical agents emerged with weapons raised. Red lasers painted Rusk, Crane, and the bodyguards in a web of light. Rusk looked up at Malcolm. He recognized the man he had mocked in the back of the police car, the man he thought was helpless.
"You,"
Rusk whispered.
"I told you, Dorian,"
Malcolm called down. "I told you I was going to end your career. Now put the gun down before my snipers turn you into a statistic." Crane immediately dropped the bag and raised his hands. "I'm unarmed. I'm a victim here. This officer is trying to rob me." "Save it for the jury, Councilman," Malcolm said. Rusk stood frozen, the gun heavy in his hand. He looked at the bag of money on the ground. Millions in cash. He looked at the FBI agents closing in. Then he looked at Malcolm Hayes, the black man he had underestimated, profiled, and tried to bury. For one brief second, Rusk raised his gun toward Malcolm. A single shot cracked through the yard, but it did not come from Rusk. Rusk's gun flew out of his hand, spinning through the air. He screamed and clutched his shattered wrist. Malcolm lowered his rifle, smoke drifting from the barrel. A perfect shot from above. Disarming, not lethal. "That," Malcolm said calmly, "was for the handcuffs." FBI agents swarmed the group. Crane was shoved against the G-Wagon. The bodyguards were zip-tied. Rusk was tackled into the dirt, wailing in pain as he was cuffed. Malcolm climbed down the ladder of the shipping container and walked over to where Rusk lay face down in the grime. Rusk looked up, his face streaked with dirt and tears.
"You ruined everything,"
he spat. Malcolm knelt, pulled out his real badge, and held it inches from Rusk's face. "You ruined yourself the moment you thought your badge gave you the right to be a criminal," Malcolm said. "You saw a black man in a nice car and you saw a target. You should have looked closer. You should have seen the Justice Department." Malcolm stood and turned to Assistant Director Cross, who was securing the money bag. "How much?" "Millions," Cross said, whistling softly. "Construction kickbacks. This is going to bring down half the city council." He looked back toward Malcolm. "And Internal Affairs is already at the precinct. They're seizing Brannigan's locker. They found the drugs in his vest. He's singing like a canary. He's giving us everyone. Rusk, the captain, all of them." Malcolm nodded. He took a deep breath of industrial air. It smelled like diesel and rust. To him, it smelled like victory. But the story was not over. As the prisoners were loaded into vans, Malcolm's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. "Agent Hayes." A distorted voice spoke. "You made a very big mess. Councilman Crane has friends. Powerful friends. You think this is a win? This is only the opening move." Malcolm frowned. "Who is this? Let's just say we are the ones who really run Chicago, and you just cost us millions. Watch your back, Agent." The voice paused. "The badge won't protect you from what comes next." The line went dead. Malcolm stared at the phone. He looked at the scene around him. Agents moving, cash being secured, prisoners being loaded away. The shocking twist was not that they had caught the bad guys. The twist was that the bad guys were only puppets. The strings led higher, much higher. The adrenaline of the raid faded into the sterile fluorescent hum of the FBI field office interrogation room. Malcolm sat across from the empty chair where Sergeant Rusk had been earlier. The phone call gnawed at him. "We are the ones who really run Chicago." Assistant Director Everett Cross entered the room and dropped a file onto the metal table. He looked exhausted. "Bad news, Malcolm," Cross said, loosening his tie. The Cook County State's attorney is dragging his feet. He's talking about releasing Crane on bail. Says the evidence is circumstantial and the chain of custody on the money is shaky. Shaky? Malcolm laughed bitterly. We have them on video. We have the money. We have Brannigan's confession. Brannigan recanted, Cross said, dropping the bomb. His union lawyer got to him. He's claiming you coerced him. He's claiming you planted the drugs in his vest during the struggle, and since his body camera conveniently malfunctioned, they're arguing it's your word against veteran officers. Malcolm stood and paced the small room. This was the shadow organization at work. They were pulling strings, muddying the water, turning a clear case into a bureaucratic nightmare. They were going to bury the truth under paperwork and lies. They're going to walk, aren't they? Malcolm asked. If we don't find a smoking gun that links Crane directly to the people above him, yes, Cross admitted. The drug charges could get thrown out on a technicality. Rusk might retire with a full pension. Crane could get reelected. Malcolm walked to the one-way mirror and stared at his reflection. He thought about Brannigan's arrogance. He thought about Rusk's greed. He thought about all the people who did not have a badge to protect them from men like that. I need to go back to the car, Malcolm said suddenly. The Charger? It's in impound. Why? The dash cam, Malcolm lied. I need to check the SD card. Cross studied him suspiciously, but nodded. Go, but watch your back. That phone call was not a bluff. Malcolm drove to the impound lot in a bureau vehicle. The city was dark and quiet. He found his wrecked Charger sitting beside the crumpled police cruiser. He did not go for a dash cam. He went to the trunk. He pulled back the carpet lining. There, velcroed to the frame, was a small high-powered directional microphone and a backup hard drive. You really didn't check the car, Malcolm whispered. The system was part of the surveillance package for the councilman operation. It had been recording everything within a wide radius in high fidelity. It had recorded the stop. It had recorded Brannigan's threats. It had recorded the sound of the handcuffs. But more importantly, the directional microphone had been powerful enough to capture the conversation inside the police cruiser while Brannigan waited for Rusk. Malcolm plugged the drive into his laptop right there in the impound lot. He scrubbed through the audio. Static. Traffic noise. Then Brannigan's voice, clear as a bell. Don't worry, Nolan. Rusk said the big man has this covered. As long as Crane gets the cash, the judge is paid off. We just have to scare this guy. Mercer's voice followed, frightened and uncertain. But he's a Fed. Brannigan again. Feds don't matter in Chicago. The organization matters. We plant the rock. We ruin his reputation. And he goes away. Just like the last one. Malcolm froze. Just like the last one. He kept listening. Brannigan's voice continued. Remember that kid in Englewood? The one who filed a complaint against Rusk? Found him with a kilo in his trunk. Now he's doing decades. This guy is next. Malcolm's heart pounded. This was not just evidence of the present crime. It was a confession to a conspiracy of framing innocent citizens. It proved a pattern. It implicated the judge. It implicated the big man. He had the smoking gun. But as he pulled the USB drive free, floodlights blinded him. 2 black SUVs blocked the impound lot exit. 4 men in dark tactical gear stepped out. No badges. No uniforms. They carried suppressed submachine guns. Malcolm's phone rang. Same unknown number. Hand over the drive, Agent Hayes, the distorted voice said. And you walk away alive. Malcolm looked at the 4 hit men, then at the drive in his hand. He was outgunned. He was cornered. You want the drive? Malcolm asked into the phone. Leave it on the hood. Walk away. Malcolm smiled. You forgot one thing about the digital age, genius. What's that? Cloud upload. Malcolm hit the enter key on his laptop. The screen flashed. Upload complete. Sent to the Chicago Tribune. CNN. FBI headquarters. Department of Justice. I just sent the audio to every major news outlet in the country, Malcolm said calmly. It's already out there. You can kill me, but you can't kill the signal. The voice on the phone screamed a curse. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real sirens. Cross had tracked Malcolm's location. The hitmen looked at one another, then scrambled back into their SUVs. They could not risk a firefight with witnesses approaching. They peeled out, tires screeching, leaving Malcolm standing alone in the impound lot with his laptop glowing in the dark. The shadow war was over. The light had been turned on. The federal courthouse was soon surrounded by a sea of people. News trucks from across the country packed the streets. The story had become a national sensation, the Chicago conspiracy. The audio Malcolm uploaded had played on every news station, podcast, and social media feed in America. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was suffocating. Travis Brannigan sat at the defense table. He looked small. The swagger was gone. The sunglasses were gone. He wore an ill-fitting orange jumpsuit. His head was shaved. His eyes were red from crying. Sergeant Dorian Rusk sat beside him, staring at the floor. He had tried to cut a deal, but the Department of Justice was no longer interested. The public outcry was too loud. They needed consequences. Councilman Sterling Crane was not there. He had been found dead in his penthouse after the audio leaked. Officially, it was an apparent suicide. Unofficially, everyone knew the organization had cleaned up a loose end. Malcolm Hayes sat in the front row wearing the same navy suit he had worn during the arrest. He watched with a stoic expression. "Will the defendants please rise?" the judge said. This judge had been brought in from out of state to ensure impartiality after local judges were implicated in the scandal. Brannigan and Rusk stood. Brannigan was visibly shaking. "Travis Brannigan," the judge read from the verdict sheet, "on the charges of deprivation of rights under color of law, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and kidnapping, the jury finds you guilty on all counts." A sob broke from Brannigan's throat. He collapsed back into his chair and buried his face in his hands. "Dorian Rusk," the judge continued, "on the charges of racketeering, corruption, attempted murder of a federal agent, and betrayal of public trust, guilty on all counts." Rusk did not move. He simply closed his eyes. "The court has heard the audio," the judge said, removing his glasses. He looked directly at the two former officers. "You did not merely break the law. You used the law as a weapon to destroy lives. You hunted the innocent. You framed the vulnerable. You believed your badges made you gods." The judge leaned forward. "Karma has a way of balancing the scales, gentlemen. You wanted to put people in cages. Now you will spend the rest of your lives in one." Travis Brannigan was sentenced to decades in federal prison. Dorian Rusk was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. The gavel came down. The sound echoed like thunder. As marshals dragged Brannigan away, he looked back toward the gallery and locked eyes with Malcolm. "I'm sorry!" Brannigan screamed, tears and snot running down his face. "I'm sorry! Help me, please!" Malcolm did not blink. He simply checked his watch. That was all it took to change everything. Outside the courthouse, the crowd erupted in cheers as the news spread. Malcolm walked down the steps, ignoring the reporters shoving microphones toward his face. He made his way to the curb where a new black Charger waited. Assistant Director Everett Cross leaned against it. "You did good, Malcolm," Cross said. "You cleaned house. The mayor resigned. The police superintendent is stepping down. You changed the city." "We cut off the head of the snake," Malcolm said, looking at the skyline. "But snakes have a way of growing back." "Maybe," Cross said with a faint smile. "But next time they'll think twice before pulling over a charcoal Charger." Malcolm got into the car and started the engine. The low hum vibrated through him, familiar and grounding. He put on his sunglasses. He was not just an agent anymore. He had become a symbol, a reminder that no matter how much power someone thinks they have, someone is always watching. There is always a reckoning. He pulled into traffic, merging with the flow of the city. He was not hunting. He was just going home. But as he drove, he tapped the dashcam. The red light blinked on. Recording, because in the real world, the story never truly ends. You just have to be ready for the next chapter. This story is a chilling reminder that authority without accountability becomes tyranny. Travis Brannigan and Dorian Rusk believed they were untouchable, protected by their badges and by a corrupt system. They saw Malcolm Hayes not as a man, but as a target they could exploit. But their arrogance became their downfall. The karma here was not magic. It was the inevitable consequence of their own actions crashing down around them. In a world of smartphones, digital surveillance, and hidden recordings, truth has a way of rising to the surface. They tried to bury an innocent man. Instead, they dug their own graves, and the story leaves behind one haunting question. How many others were framed before Malcolm Hayes, and what would have happened if he had not been an FBI agent? If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, Hit the like button. It truly helps the channel grow. Share this video with your friends to spread the message, and subscribe for more real-life inspired drama stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss a shocking twist.